All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And good evening, one and all, and welcome back to the X Zone. My name is Rob McConnell, and for the next 2 hours, I'm your host and your guide as together we will cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And the X Zone comes to you Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until midnight, right here on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and streaming around the world on classic1220.ca and on the X Zone Broadcast Network, Talkstar Radio Network, and Mutual Broadcast Network. We're going to be talking about the politics of UFO disclosure this hour with a good friend of ours, Stephen Bassett. And he is let me see. To best describe Stephen, he is a political activist, disclosure advocate, and the executive director of Paradigm Research Group, founded in 1996 to end a government-imposed embargo on the truth behind extraterrestrial-related phenomena. He has spoken to audiences around the world about the implications of disclosure, the formal confirmation by heads of state of an extraterrestrial presence engaging the human race. He has lectured around the world on the political implications of UAP, ET phenomena, and given over 1,200 radio and television interviews. PRG's advocacy work has been extensively covered by the national and international media, including Fox, CNN, MSNBC, and the Washington Post and New York Times. Joining us is Stephen Bassett. And Stephen, welcome back to the X Zone. Always great having you with us.
As always, Rob, it's great to be with you.
Stephen, what is new when it comes to disclosure and what's happening?
What is new? Well, pull up a chair, order a pizza.
Oh, okay. How do you take your pizza?
Well, I like pineapple.
Okay.
I'm not afraid to say so.
Oh,
look, I don't know what it looks like in Canada, but from down here, this is going to be studied for a long time by historians. It is one of the most significant political years in American history. We've had some big ones, no question.
Mm-hmm.
But this is right up there. It might even be number one. It has been one hell of a ride. And by year, I mean going back to July of last year. So it's basically 1 year this month, but it's not done. It won't be done until November, really, but January. So what's going on here is two things at the same time. Coinciding, traveling together in the same train, but not getting along. Is the end of the truth embargo, a government policy to deny, undermine the reality that we're not alone in the universe, that we have visitors, almost certainly from other stars, but whatever, non-human technology built by non-humans, and the confirmation of that, I came to call a disclosure with a capital D. This is back in the early aughts. I came up with a disclosure had been around, the term was in use, but I gave it a capital D, called it a name, made it a proper noun, and said this is the goal. We have to get confirmation from our president. And if it doesn't come from our president, another president or a prime minister. Pick one close by.
Sure.
That's disclosure with a capital D. That's the game-changing, door-opening event that allows the rest of the small d disclosure to begin, ultimately leading to the world's people knowing everything about the ET presidents in the modern era. Disclosure with a capital D. So this last year, that has been unfolding at a pace unprecedented. More has happened in the last year than the previous 6, and more has happened in the last 7 than the previous 70. So we're heading toward the most profound event in human history. At the same time, the U.S. is going through an election like no other, an election cycle like no other. We've never quite been in a place like this. It's off the charts. We've had some extraordinary elections. We've had some strange things happen in the past. We've had a president resign and not take another term, or say he wasn't going to take another term. We've had a president forced to resign, et cetera, et cetera. I lived through all of it. In fact, I lived through the entire post-World War II era, period, the whole damn thing. I was a little young in the early years, but I actually remember sitting down in front of a TV and watching the McCarthy hearing.
Wow.
Okay? I remember sitting down and watching for days and days the aftermath of the Kennedy assassination, and then I sat down and I watched the Nixon hearings, Iran-Contra hearings, pretty much every one of the major events that got televised that we would call significant events, political events in American history. I watched. Okay, this is up there, maybe number one. The election, everything leading up to it, the nature of the campaign, who's involved, what's going on, it's just mind-boggling. And you when you think you've got it under control, something else has happened. Now, I think most Canadians are sort of following this. They kind of know, but these two things are happening at the same time, and they are interconnected. So disclosure, obviously, as I defined it, is confirmation by the U.S. president of the non-human presence. But of course, who's the president?
Exactly,
right?
exactly. And how do you people in the U.S. look at it, where you've got one president resigning, and he is, he's passed the torch on to Vice President Harris. How can he still be a president if he's already passed the torch to the vice president for the upcoming election?
Well, no, what he's passed the torch to. What the torch that he passed to Harris is
Right.
the candidacy
Okay.
to be the next president. He's going to remain in office all the way through January 20 of next year, and he made the right move. It will go down in history as one of the very significant actions of any U.S. president. He doesn't have to worry about the campaign now, really. I mean, he can campaign, I suppose, to the degree he wants to for Kamala Harris, but essentially he can focus now on just what's going on in the world and the needs of this country. So that's good. All right. She will almost certainly be the candidate. But again, disclosure is about the president confirming. Now, let me be clear. I desperately wanted disclosure to happen early this year, very early this year.
Yes, I remember that, yeah.
We were on a track for that. And once the Schumer-Rounce bill was submitted in July of last year. Remember, I'm talking about the last year. The extraordinary things have happened. That was mentioned and put forward by Schumer in July 14. It was put up on the Senate website July 27, and then it sat there and was viewed and read by people all over the world. And we were anticipating the possibility that it would get reconciled with the House and passed. Well, it didn't. This bill pushed the envelope a little too far, and so huge pushback against that bill and all it stood for, which is disclosure, took place, and they gutted the bill. Okay, so a runt version of the bill was passed. They couldn't get rid of it all. Bit of a setback. Still, there was a fourth piece of legislation. At the same time, as of last year at that period, we knew that dozens and dozens of witnesses had been coming in one way or another and being interviewed by various members of various committees of Congress. Real witnesses, people with, in some cases, firsthand connection to the ET stuff that the government's working on, and a lot of other things. More than enough witness to hold several hearings, but we only needed one. And so that was all going on, feeling pretty good. So the setback of the bill being gutted was not that big a thing, because while they could block the bill, they could not stop a hearing. That's totally in the hands of Senator Mark Warner, the chairman of the Intel Committee. There are other committees that they would like to hold a hearing. There's one that has, the Oversight Committee in the House. But those are not what's going to do the trick. What we needed was the major hearing in front of the Intel Committee. Could have had it late last year. Could have had it early this year. I desperately wanted that because I knew that this thing cannot become politicized, and it hadn't, right? But as we get closer to the election, the ability to hold that hearing was going to diminish. Well, it wasn't happening, right? And of course, the political scene was not helping. I mean, the politics in the U.S. right now is absolutely cutthroat, vicious, off the charts, embarrassing, hyperbolic, high school, emotionally immature. Pick a word, pick a phrase. It's all that. And so it wasn't going well, all right? Then the next thing that happened, of course, during this period was a desperate effort by the Department of Defense to almost shut down the disclosure process with the phony Arrow report, which was completely bogus. The whole thing was a lie. So they put that out there, and they thought that would do it. Didn't do it, but it definitely set things back some more, right? Slowed things down. And so we're pushing further now. We're going into 2024, and I'm seeing time running out. Well, I did everything I could. Danny Sheehan did everything he could. Others did what they could not get Warner to hold the hearing. Now, I have learned from a source that the standoff, which might have been an excuse, was that Warner wanted to hold a hearing. And we knew that. We knew he wanted to hold a hearing. I mean, it will be one of the most important hearings in the history of Congress. And it will be the Senate Intel Committee, which he chairs. Millions upon tens of millions of people will watch this hearing and watch these 17 members, Democrats and Republican, take testimony from dozens of high-end witnesses with extraordinary information that they will give under oath. So it's a big deal.
It is, truly. Yeah.
But Warner was being too risk-averse. And as we got closer to the election, our politicians, who are by nature totally risk-averse, they are scared to death of screwing something up because everything they say and do. Why? Because they have to raise so much money to get elected. $1, $5, $10, $15, $20 million in some cases to get elected, which means they've got to raise all this money. They have a certain obligation to the people that are giving the money, and so they're afraid to take chances, be bold. And so given a choice between seizing the day and taking another week, they do the latter. Now,
Steve, I hate to pull you off track here,
yes.
but I do have to take a break here. Always great hearing from you, Steve. And Exo Nation, our guest this hour is the one and only Steve Bassett, and he is with PRG. The website is www.paradigmresearchgroup.org. And Steve and I will be back on the other side of this break as we continue talking about UFO disclosure and how close are we? And how important is it in the new administration that's going to be in power coming in the month of January of 2025. I'm Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone. You're listening to us on Classic 1220 and streaming around the world on classic1220.ca. Welcome back, everyone. The website to visit to find out all. Steve's got such a fantastic website. It'll take you a good bit of time. So instead of Steve and I having the Hawaiian pizza over here, get yourself a couple of Hawaiian pizzas and a nice cool beverage and take a look at their website. It's paradigmresearchgroup.org. Steve, we were talking about what's happening in the political arena in the U.S. and, with President Biden stepping down, the near assassination of former President Trump, the stepping down of the head of the Secret Service, And then, Joe Biden's decision to not run.
Yeah.
As somebody who works very hard in Washington, Steve, you're the hardest working guy in Washington as far as we're concerned. How familiar would Vice President Harris be in tune with the Disclosure Project? Has she given any sign whatsoever on her feelings or her opinion about UFOs, UAPs?
Formally, no.
No,
She knows about it. Biden knows about it.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, there's probably hardly anybody in Washington that doesn't know about it. It's getting a little ridiculous. She was interviewed on this subject by Jimmy Kimmel, as was Clinton, as was Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, and Barack Obama. And he asked her pretty much the same question he asked them years ago. And she danced around a little bit, but she didn't dismiss it, kind of laughed, and left him with the same thing Hillary did. Well, I can't say too much. I can't say something now. No, she knows this. It's hard. You probably can't find anybody in D.C. that doesn't know there's an extraterrestrial presence. They may call it non-human biology, whatever the hell, and that we have these vehicles. It's all over the place, right? Scores of witnesses have come forward, but the briefings have all been private. But the media coverage of it has been extensive. So we're marching forward, and I'm feeling good. But as I mentioned before the break, we've had some significant developments. And so Warner wanted to have a hearing, but he wanted firsthand witnesses, people that actually worked on the ET craft. And those witnesses didn't want to come forward because they didn't feel they had enough protection yet. And so there was a standoff. That delayed things. All right. And then the Arrow report comes out. That delayed things. And I began to realize that we're not going to be able to get that hearing before the election.
Now, Steve, before you go any further, can you tell our listeners what that report was?
The Arrow report was suddenly thrown together after they gutted the bill.
Mm-hmm.
And they realized, okay. And then Schumer went back into the Senate and read into the record that he wasn't done yet. He was going to continue to do this, which I told everybody he was going to do it. And so they realized, well, he's not going to stop. What next? And then, of course, they were probably reminded that Warner can hold the hearing and bring 20, 30 witnesses anytime he wants to. And so they really backed themselves into a corner by gutting that bill. Plus, they exposed themselves. They came out of cover. Everybody knew what was going on. And they realized that if the defense contractors are pushing back against that bill in eminent domain over non-human tech, I guess that kind of confirms they have non-human tech. So they were losing the battle. They were winning a war but losing the battle. So they panicked, and they decided to try to shut it down like they did in '69 with the Condon report. So they put together this phony report, got Kirkpatrick to sign off on it, and put it out saying, "No, we didn't find anything. We didn't do this." The whole thing's a lie. It's a complete and total lie. Right? In some ways, it's far more disgraceful than the Condon report. But this is 2024, not 1969. So the thing blew up in their face. But that delayed things. All right? And so I'm realizing, look, we're not going to get the hearings. But there were plenty of indications that, indicating the failure of the gutting the UAP Disclosure Act and the Arrow report. And what were the examples of that? Two buttes. Garcia, who was a member of our House, a Democratic member of the House of Representatives, suddenly, after the Arrow report introduces part of the original Disclosure Act that Schumer had put into the Senate, he introduced it into the House. It was the part that involved the UAP review panel under the White House. So he puts that bill into play in the House. Now, Mike Johnson shot it down right away, but the message was clear. Garcia was telling the Pentagon, we don't believe a word in that Arrow report. We're not done yet, and here I'm putting this bill in. Okay, that got shut down. No problem. And so we move on forward, and then things are happening. And again, I'm committed to the fact we're not going to get a hearing this year. So I'm looking ahead. But why I'm looking ahead is an unbelievably bizarre, complex political situation. And then Schumer steps in. And like Garcia, he basically drops a bill into the Senate side for consideration as a voted from the floor amendment to the NDA, National Defense Disclosure Act. He does that. That was basically what Garcia was doing. So now Schumer has basically told the DOD, well, I don't believe, the Senate doesn't believe a word of that Arrow report. And I'm going, great. Okay, things are looking fine. The next day, someone tries to assassinate a former president of the United States. Well, that act, the thing that Schumer did, got almost zero attention. Still hasn't. A couple of articles. That's it. Perfectly understandable. But of course, the people that need to know. And so now you've had an assassination attempt. That takes the whole political thing to a whole nother level. All right. And so now we fully understand there's not going to be a hearing this year. I'm stepping back. Others are pretty much stepping back. We're working on building structure, getting the word out. But in terms of punching the politicians with, we want it. No, this has gotten way too intense. Mm-hmm. And in short order, Biden was faced with an inevitable decision. I mean, I knew some time ago he would have to step down. The question is, what would it take? And so he is convinced to step down. And so now we have a new candidate, pretty much assured to be nominated even before the convention, still waiting on a running mate. And now we're going forward with pretty much a whole new campaign that's going to consume the next 100 days like nothing you've ever seen. And that's fine. So disclosure is going to happen next year, and it's going to happen under the next president.
Steve, whatever made you go into the disclosure advocacy plan and become an activist?
Well, I became an activist in the issue in '96 because I wanted to do something, and this is something that was important. My life had not really been particularly satisfying to me, no purpose, just screwing around. So I decided this was it, but I didn't know how I was going to do it. But I got lucky, and I was able to volunteer for John Mack's organization, working with contactees for a while. Spent 4 months in Cambridge, and they generously allowed me to come out as a volunteer. While I was there, I figured out my path. I knew Washington. I'd lived in it my whole life, off and on. My family there, it goes back to 1920s. So I knew I had a place to stay. I knew the way around. And I went down there. I registered as a lobbyist, which I knew was going to attract attention. And the moment I got the big write-up in the Washington Post about it, I had a career, in a sense. I didn't have any money, and I still don't. But I had done something that no one had ever done. I'd registered as a lobbyist. I created the first political action committee. Not a big deal, but no one had ever done it. So it was like it was like a marker that had been laid down. And so I was the first to do that, and that was kind of cool. And then so that was my path. I'm going to be an activist on the issue of what I came to call the truth embargo a couple years later, and ultimately involving disclosure, which I defined. I just defined it to make it very clear, no ambiguity there, mm-hmm. that it's the formal confirmation by the heads of state, our president being one head of state. And that's an act, it's a proper noun, it would happen on a single day, it would take 5 minutes. That's disclosure, capital D. And that was the goal of what was a developing movement. There had not really been a cohesive activist movement on this issue prior to the early aughts. There just wasn't. There'd been the odd thing here and there, but no activist movement, and pretty much people know what an activist movement is. There's a reason for that. It's the issue itself and the fact that the government virtually denies the existence of the subject matter. And so we couldn't get one together, and I get it. There was no money. We had an intellectual ghetto around us. But finally, after 50-some years, a movement starts to get developed in the early aughts, which is now full bore going forward, right? And so as I got further into the movement, I became more and more aware of, I knew some things, but I got more aware of the issues that the United States is facing, the colossal mistakes it has made, the dysfunction within our political system. In fact, there's dysfunction everywhere. And as I became more aware of that, I became also aware that there was this connection between the ET presence and the nuclear weapons. This was a non-trivial thing. And so that is also very political. And so now you've got a direct connection that's been established between the presence of these ETs and their activities and nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons is one of the great political issues of our time. And you've got a disclosure process or movement underway. And so that's it. The deeper I got into it, the more important it got, the more committed I got. And if I have one failing, I'm just terrible at raising money. And so I've had limited resources, but I've had supporters, and I've been able to contribute.
Have you yourself ever had a sighting or a contact with a UFO? Have you seen an ET? No way.
No, I've got nothing.
So
I know plenty of people who have,
Huh.
but I have not, and actually I'm glad. So there's no experiential bias there, right? It's like, if I saw an ET, and when people have contact with ETs, it affects them rather greatly. If they have a strong sighting, they never forget it, and so that becomes a big thing for them. I haven't had that, so I'm able to approach the disclosure process and getting the confirmation of this reality without that emotional connection to the issue at that level. So I can be a little more circumspect, a little more grounded, I guess you could say. So in that sense, it's been helpful.
All right, Steve, stand by. You and I have to take our break at the bottom. Stephen Bassett is our special guest of this hour, Exo Nation, ParadigmResearchGroup.org. And from what I've seen and what I know about the American political scene, Steve does a hell of a lot better job in Washington than most lawmakers do. So, Steve, hats off to you, buddy. This is the X Zone. I'm Rob McConnell, coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. And you're listening to us on the X Zone Broadcast Network, Talkstar Radio Network, Mutual Broadcast Network, and, of course, your hometown radio, our anchor station, our flagship station here on the X Zone, your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and streaming around the world on Classic1220.ca. So whatever you do, if your pizza has arrived, and if you like Hawaiian pizzas like Steve and I do, cut us off a slice, and we'll enjoy it together on the other side of this break when we come back. Don't go away.
Now when she comes walking over, now I've been waiting to show her crimson and clover over and I was waiting for so long for a miracle to come. Everyone told me to be strong. Hold on and don't shed a tear. Through the darkness and good times, I knew I'd make it through. And the world thought I had it.
Stephen Bassett is our guest this hour, Exo Nation, ParadigmResearchGroup.org. And just before we get back to Stephen, a little bit of housework here. I'm going to be hosting a new show Saturday and Sundays here on Classic 1220. It's going to be about, it's called Your Hometown Radio Show. It's all going to be about the Niagara area. It's going to be about the what to see, what events are coming up, and talking to the lawmakers, the citizens, the merchants, John Q. Public. It's going to be all about your town. And no, we're not going to be talking about aliens, UFOs, unless we happen to find an alien down in Niagara Falls who's willing to talk to us. And there's plenty of aliens in Niagara Falls. They come up from the southern border. Oh, I'm going to get it for that one, right, Craig? Yeah. Anyway, coming soon to your hometown radio, Classic 1220, your hometown radio show with yours truly, Rob McConnell. Stephen, when it comes to all the work that you are doing in Washington, and I've seen you brought together the press conferences at the press club. You brought in people like Captain, what's his name? My gosh, it slipped my mind.
Robert Salas.
Robert Salas, right, with the Maelstrom Air Force Base incident. And others who have nothing but the highest degree of credibility. Mm-hmm. And yet, how can the government still deny all of these people saying the basic same thing? The media picks it up, and how can the government just shut their ears and say, well, no, it's nothing like that at all?
It's simple. The reality of the ET presence is a incredibly highly classified national security matter. Okay, If you want to know where all the nuclear submarines are, the government's not going to tell you.
No, of course
If
not.
you want to know particulars about our ICBM systems, they're not going to tell you. The list of things they won't tell you for national security reasons is a very long list. And most people are fine with that. Oh, I understand completely. Well, guess what? One of the things on that list is the ET presence. Everything they know about it, any craft they have studied, any science they've learned, that has all been embargoed, right? And I say embargoed for a reason. It's not illegal, right? It's not a cover-up.
Mm-hmm.
It is a national security matter that is being kept from the public, and it is, because I believe it is a mistake and policy needs to end. I refer to it as a truth embargo. So that's that simple. Until they are, and the issue is big enough and important enough that it's not like they're going to have a wake up one morning and go, let's just tell them. No. Plus, the program is now 70 years on. There's so much vested interest in it. There's so many people connected to it. So much embarrassment that will come from ending it. It's a big deal. It's just like the major movements of the 20th century. They were all big deals, and they took a long time to finally resolve. This is another one, right? Which is now 77 years on. And by the way, what your audience is getting from me is a rapid fire kind of assessment, an activist assessment of what's going on. If you would like, there's a place where you can get a very condensed, easy to follow journalist assessment of what's going on. It's really fantastic. And it is published and edited by a fine member of the Commonwealth. And that is Christopher Sharp. And so his publication is liberationtimes.com, liberationtimes.com. It is all about this issue, with 90% of the emphasis on the politics. And so if you go to that and you can scroll way down and start at the very beginning. I forget, he's been out for a number of months, and just read chronologically forward, or you can start at the top and read and going backward. But almost everything I'm talking about is discussed, but from a journalistic standpoint and in some detail. It's an enormous resource. Now, I have 15,000 articles on my website under the resources print media archive, and all of these are in there along with another 14,000. But this particular publication, it gets it as good as any out there and deserves to be recognized. So what's going to happen, Rob, is we're going to get disclosure under the next president, whoever that president is. Too much has happened. Too much water's under the bridge. This cannot be turned around. And so, depending upon who the person you would prefer to be the disclosure president, then vote accordingly. So now I'm setting my sights there. I think it'll happen pretty quickly, barring some bizarre, extraordinary crises that might be going on. God knows, we got plenty now. There can be more coming, but the stage is completely set. More legislation could be easily passed. The legislation could be passed before the next president. It'll be signed in December. The Schumer Act could be expanded. Who knows? But we are in an irreversible course leading to the hearings that will happen in the Senate and the disclosure event, the confirmation event from the President of the United States, unless another head of state beats us to it. Could happen. And so I'm pretty optimistic about this. I don't like to wait the extra year, but under the circumstances, I get it.
When it comes to the work that's been done by you and other people in Washington and trying to get this out there, a couple of months ago was the congressional hearing that was held, and David Grush was there and some other witnesses. There was a big lead up to it, and there's a lot of people in the UFO community who said it was like a fuse sizzling out, that nothing was accomplished that they saw. And I was wondering, how did this congressional hearing, in your opinion, help the UFO cause?
A massive event. Look, most of what is happening behind the scenes. It's not happening in public. I get that. That's my job, is to try to follow these things. And others, the regular public is not going to see this. Nothing surprising there, but are things happening? Oh my God, yes. So when David Grush comes forward on July the 5th last year, as a true whistleblower, saying, look, this is what I know. I've been told by firsthand witnesses. This is what's happening. I'm being harassed about it. I'm being attacked for telling the truth to the appropriate entities. He went to the Inspector General. He got relief, whatever, but it wasn't enough. He kept getting death threats. So he goes public as a whistleblower to Ross Coulthart and to the debrief. And boom, that was a huge deal. And some individuals in the House, Republicans, led by Tim Burchett, who had already been speaking out on the issue, publicly saying that there's extraterrestrials here, seized on the opportunity and brought him in for a hearing. Subcommittee of the Oversight. Big deal. A lot of people watch that hearing. I happened to be in the room when it happened. They had two pilots, Ryan Graves and David Fravor, to testify with him, to provide a little depth. But it was primarily about his statements, and it was all now under oath and on the record forever. Now, people that are not following this and don't understand government are expecting all hell to break loose. No. But him coming forward and putting that on the record generated a huge amount of media. I'm sure it put a lot of things in motion, not the least of which is the opponents to disclosure started marshaling their forces, not assuring what was going to come next. And so it was a major thing. And I know it, and the people that need to know it know it. The American people, the best way to follow this issue is by just reading the media about it. There's never been more media on the UAP or disclosure issue in all of our history. And I got 15,000, just last year, 1,800 articles, triaged from 3,000. It covers it all. And now there's another 700 this year. And I've just mentioned one particularly concise source, and that's liberationtimes.com. If you go read these articles, most people would go, wow, I didn't know that. There's a lot happening, right? Behind the scenes, believe me, this is a huge deal, and it would already be done. But there is an even bigger deal politically that's been happening in this country, and that has overshadowed it, affected it, and delayed it. I get it, right? But it is a defined delay, and so I'm not panicking. Waited a long time for this, and so if it doesn't happen until early next year, that's fine with me. In the meantime, so many people are aware of this that they're coming together to form organization after organization I can't even keep up with it. So you've got the New Paradigm Institute, which has already raised hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, hired a full staff, spent a fortune on a website, newparadigminstitute.org. It's a nonprofit 501c3, and it's going to grow and grow. It's interviewing witnesses. It's working on legislation for witness protection. It's holding education. It's a big deal because they got a lot of money. Okay, and then you've got another think tank, the Soul Foundation, put together by led by Gary Nolan, which is basically a scientific think tank, based out of Stanford or in that zone. That's a big deal. The UAP Disclosure Fund, a 501c4 political entity to raise money for disclosure issues. That's formed. I mean, I can't keep up with it. All of this is happening. Now, most people are not able to follow that, though if you read the articles, you'll see it. You've got people going on television and saying there's ETs here. Nolan's done it several times. A highly ranked, highly credible person, Colonel Carl Nell, went in front of a very significant financial conference called blanking it out. I'll get it. The SALT conference, which is held in New York every year. They have a special speaker. Grush was supposed to speak. He passed at the last minute, probably because of death threats, and Colonel Carl Nell came in, and he's all over the internet. He says flat out, there's extraterrestrials here.
But how does he know that?
Because, if you were to watch that video, it's easy to find. Just do a YouTube search on Colonel Carl, K-R-L, Nell, YouTube. That's all. Yeah, but it comes up. It's about 26 minutes long.
Just give us the short version, Steve.
He lists his credentials. He has this extensive career in the military and in the Air Force National Guard, as well as high-level defense contractor positions. It's an A-class resume. He just literally goes right through it.
Okay.
And the reason he goes through it is because the interviewer says to his audience, speaking to Colonel Nell, he says, Colonel, please tell us your background so they can understand why they should pay attention to what you say. That was all scripted. And so he runs through his full background beyond anything you would normally see. And then he's asked the key question. Is there any doubt that that we are not being visited by non-human?
All right, I hate to do this again to you, my friend, but I've got to take my final break with you.
Sure.
And Exo Nation, our guest this hour is the one and only Steve Bassett. He is a political activist, and he is also leading the charge on the disclosure project of getting the truth out into the public about the ET presence here on this beautiful planet of ours. His website, paradigmresearchgroup.org. We'll both be back as we wrap up this hour here in the X Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. And you're listening to us on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, streamed on classic1220.ca.
Wears his Sunday best. Mother's tired, she needs a rest. The kids are playing up downstairs. Sister's sighing in her sleep. Brother's got a date to keep, he can't hang around. Our house in the middle of our street. Our house in the middle of our house. It has a crowd. There's always something.
Welcome back. Stephen Bassett is our special guest, paradigmresearchgroup.org. And before we go any further, Steve, I have to thank you so much for over the years, the hard work that you've done trying to get this this truth out there. And you work so hard, and we appreciate you being out there, buddy.
Thank you. I appreciate that you have given me this opportunity to speak to your audience many years now.
Yeah. Let's get back to the Colonel Nell for a sec.
Yeah.
I think what the problem is, Steve, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that John Q. Public, who has an interest in UAPs, the truth, the embargo, the disclosure, is it that they don't have enough time to look at all the facts that are going into it, all the actions that you see in Washington and with other organizations behind the scenes? And is it that possible that all they want to know is, hey, where's the meat? They want the condensed version. They don't want all the background. They don't want all the research. They don't want all the interviews. They just want to know for sure, once and for all, are they here?
Well, they're going to get that. But understand how paradigm shifts take place. Okay. One of the greatest scientific paradigm shifts of all time was the discovery of relativity and the new understanding of space and time.
Right.
Which came out of the brain of Einstein, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody even knew who he was. It took years before it even sort of got into the public domain, right? And then a few top scientists are working on it. No, that's not the way it works. There is a huge volume of individuals, and now entities, that are driving to get this done. I assure you, more than enough to get it done. What's more important is not that the public has all understands everything, or is able to access everything, that's not the way it works. But what is important is that the awareness of this issue is at a level that I don't think that we've ever seen. In other words, this issue, the idea of UFO and the idea of extraterrestrials or aliens, is now probably at the 95 plus percentile of the world's people. Meaning 95+% of the world's people know what you're talking about when you refer to extraterrestrials, UFOs, in the appropriate language. In South America, it's OVNI, and so forth. 95%, because it's a global. Well, we live in a global time with massive global interconnections and so forth, and so 95% are aware of it and know that's huge. That fact alone, you can't probably pick any other issue that has a political connotation where the awareness level is that high. Now,
I understand that, Steve. And I can't argue with you. That is a high awareness. when you're talking in the high 90s. But out of that large number of awareness, how many of those people are actually believers?
Again, it doesn't matter. What matters is they're aware of it. The number of people that, when you say believe, the number of people that believe this, that we're not alone in the universe, is now up in the 80 plus percentile worldwide. The number of people that actually convinced this phenomena is real is above 50% worldwide. And the number of people that are convinced that it's non-human is in the 40% range worldwide. There have been polls on this, particularly the Ipsos poll. And the United States, same numbers. These are huge numbers. Now, just because they're convinced there's ETs here doesn't mean they're going to sign up, donate tons of money, or devote their life to it. This issue doesn't lend itself to that. The government's truth embargo has successfully minimized the amount of money available to this movement to levels that are really bizarre. It's amazing. No money. Now the money's starting to come together, which is another reason why it's almost over. But as the issue advances, because you've got this awareness level, it's like having a rich fertile ground, right, in which to grow something. If it's a lot of other nutriments and it's really rich, and that stuff grows like crazy. And so this awareness level worldwide is that rich soil, that everything that happens is going to grow very fast. And so that's what's important. Not that you don't walk up to anybody in the street. You think we should get disclosure? I don't know. That's not. Look, there are thousands and thousands of people now working on this issue. There's been 70 years of research. There's a massive presence on social media. I assure you, it is the only reason we haven't got disclosure is not because not enough people care. It is because the United States government, along with the assistance of its allies or cooperation of its allies, has spent an enormous amount of resources to embargo this issue, to prevent it from becoming known or confirmed. A massive effort, which I call the truth embargo, and which history will judge. And I don't think it's going to judge it well. But whatever it is, that has been the policy of the United States since 1947. It's about to end. Thank God. And then history will judge.
Steve,
should they have done it? Should they have waited? Whatever.
Steve, in your mind's eye, how do you see the day after disclosure?
Oh boy. Said it many. Well, I recommend the book, The Day After, AD After Disclosure, by my good friend Richard Dolan and Brian Sable. They get into that, but they get in this more expanded view. But the day after disclosure, these are some things you know are going to be happening. Every briefing room of every appropriate office in an entity, agency in the United States, in Washington D.C., is going to be packed with journalists. I mean, packed. They're going to be down the halls, and I'm talking about the DOD, talking about the White House, congressional briefing offices. Hell, if there's a briefing office at the Federation of American Scientists or the science institutes, whatever, they're going to be packing these offices just loaded with questions. You can count on that. The media is going to go nuts. Articles worldwide pouring forth. That torrential media will continue for weeks and months. All right. The internet will be on fire. There will be good, bad, indifferent, but on fire. Questions flying everywhere. And then you're going to see pretty much rapid actions within the United States government, facilitated by all the legislation that's been passed, facilitated by the fact that they have set up an organization, Arrow, to address the issue, which they already know about, but they still have to address it. And there is more research to do post-disclosure. It's going to be unlike anything you will see in 100 lifetimes. The Kennedy assassination, Nixon, resigning, the McCarthy hearings, way past that. It'll be unlike anything you can really imagine. I'm just trying to give you a taste.
Sure.
It will be the biggest event in human history, and you can expect, therefore, the reaction to it to be commensurate, particularly in the area of media. Now, if it's nonpartisan, I don't expect a strong political reaction. I don't expect people jumping up and going, "Oh my God, are the ETs Democrats or Republicans?" or "This is a lie because some Republican," but whatever. No, I don't see that. You may see some press pushback from some strong DOD people, but it'll be hopeless.
Right.
The scientific world will explode. Kids will start signing up for science and math degrees or programs in droves. Right? It will be the most profound event in human history, and it will remain profound for years. And I believe will lead ultimately to open contact with extraterrestrials, and hopefully, possibly, the greatest age of reform the world has ever seen, meaning global, broad, comprehensive, productive, which is desperately needed because we have to fix a lot of stuff, or we're pretty much cooked as a viable civilization because we've put everything off too long, violated too many natural laws, committed too many egregious crimes. So hopefully that will happen too. That's one of the reasons I stick with this.
Steve, how long after disclosure do you think that full contact will happen?
I give it 2 years, which puts it around 26. And this 1926 is coming up, and a lot of people, people predicting this and that from various psychic sources and what have you. But 2026 is becoming a thing. I'm basing it purely on a simple common sense deduction. How long will it take for, given the internet and the communication power we have, how long will it take for the world to get up to speed on the fundamentals of the ET issue and its history? And by the world, I mean pretty much everybody that wants to, which will be a huge number. 2 years is enough. I mean, you have access to everything. The books, the media, documentaries. I think 2 years is enough for people to go, yeah, I got it. Now what? And at that point, open disclosure then becomes both not only appropriate, but probably almost anticlimactic. So it could be a year, could be 2 years. But I like 2 years. I'm sticking with it. That puts it in 2026.
All right. Now, we base this on our disclosure, but how do we know that our timeline of events is the same that the ETs have? What happens if they come before disclosure?
They can do anything they want, Rob. That's always the case, and there's nothing I can do about that or predict about that. They're going to do what they want, and so that can happen anytime. But since we can't control it, I just don't think about it much. But I do believe they have an agenda. I've talked about that agenda. We can do that on another program. But there is a basis to describe what appears to be an ET-based agenda. But again, it's just from connecting the dots that we have and what knowledge we have, and that has been mangled and suppressed by our own government. But you do the best you can until we get harder and more straightforward information. But I do think we can describe an agenda. I've done it on many podcasts. And we can also kind of project where things might go. They're not just hanging around for the hell of it. They have reasons to be here. There is an agenda, and I hope one day they will tell us themselves why they did what they did, when they did it, and so forth. Which means that 2 years from now, things can get pretty cool. You'll probably want to keep your show on the air.
Oh, I have no intentions of taking it off. Steve, as always, time goes by so fast with you. I'd love to have you back at your earliest convenience. It's also great talking to you. And once again, thank you for all the work you've done over the years. And, just keep on plugging for everybody. Yes. And one last thing. Sure. The lead organization right now, in terms of the point of despair on this issue, is the New Paradigm Institute. Check it out, newparadigminstitute.org. And if you have you want to define a true leader of this movement, I say a true leader, a well-defined leader of this movement that's right out there in front. It's got to be Danny Sheehan, in my view. Others might differ, but Steve, I hate to do this, but the clock has run out. So thanks a lot for being with us, Steve. Take care, and X-Zone Nation, I'll be back as once again we continue investigating the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X-Zone on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and streamed around the world on classic1220.ca.